Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Hi, welcome to Vanished Voices. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Shannon.
It's December 4th, 2014, in Detroit, Michigan. The wind chill that night is somewhere below zero. There's snow already on the ground and more coming. Inside a house on the city's east side, a 19-year-old woman puts on a hoodie, not a coat, a hoodie. She doesn't grab her phone, she doesn't grab her ID, her purse, her wallet, anything, and she walks out the door. Now, she's never lived in a Michigan winter. She's from Texas. This is only her second time in this city, in this neighborhood. And within 15 minutes,
How would she leave without her
she's gone.
phone?
Well, that is the heart of the question.
She's a teenager. I can see all of that except the phone.
So it's like, were you going outside for 3 seconds and coming right back inside?
I bet the phone would still be on her normally.
Yeah.
I know when my kids run out to their car, the phone is with them.
Well, and there's going to be two versions of that.
Okay.
So we'll come back to it.
Okay.
The story we have for you today is the story of Jasmine Moody. More than a decade later, nobody has found her. Nobody has been charged. And for a long time, almost nobody outside of her own family was looking. Before we get further into the night of December 4th, before Detroit, let me tell you a tiny bit about who Jasmine was. In a lot of the coverage on this case, she becomes this set of details. 5'5", 130 pounds, last seen wearing a white hoodie. Jasmine was so much more than that. She was born on January 1st, 1996. Her family has roots in Arkansas, but she was raised in Fort Worth, Texas. She graduated from O.D. Wyatt High School in the spring of 2014. By every account from the people who knew her, she was the kind of student that teachers remember. She made the honor roll consistently. She danced, and she was deeply involved in her school's ROTC program, training with an eye toward the U.S. Armed Forces. Her mother, Lisa, has said that even as a teenager, Jasmine already knew what she wanted her life to look like. By 16, she decided she wanted to become a nurse. Not maybe a nurse, not thinking about nursing. She wanted it specifically years before most kids her age have any idea what they want to do with their life. And that fall, she took her next step towards getting there. She enrolled at Texas Women's University in Denton, just outside of Dallas-Fort Worth, as a freshman. And when she got there, she kept doing what she'd always done. She was making the honor roll again. She kept dancing. She carried her ROTC training into her college years. Her stepfather, Patrick, has described her as someone who changed the temperature of a room just by being in it, which I loved that description. He said Jasmine was ahead of her time. Every moment with her was good. And Lisa has echoed that. She talked about her daughter as popular, social, endlessly energetic. She always had a smile on her face. Lisa said, always, always. Back home in Fort Worth, her friends noticed the same thing in her absence that her family did. A close friend who was a senior at Wyatt when Jasmine disappeared, so a year behind her, has talked about how out of character it was to lose contact with her. Just like you said with the phone in the beginning. Always had her phone on her. She said it was weird that when any of her friends would call, it was going straight to voicemail. And that felt wrong for someone as reachable and present as Jasmine had always been. That detail matters, and it's going to matter more as the story goes on, because almost everyone who has ever spoken publicly about Jasmine, her mom, her stepdad, her friends back home, they've all said some version of the same thing. It wasn't like her. She wouldn't just go quiet, and she wouldn't just disappear into the night and not call. And that is what makes it so hard to understand what happened next. Sometime in mid-2014, while she was living in Texas, Jasmine connected with a young woman in Detroit named Brittany. They met online. Most sources say on Twitter. And whatever it was between them, it moved fast and it lasted. By the time Jasmine disappeared, they'd reportedly been close for about 2 years. And here's where the story runs into its first real inconsistency. What kind of relationship this actually was depends on who you ask. Jasmine's mom, Lisa, has described the relationship as platonic. Detroit police, on the other hand, have said on the record that they believe Jasmine and Brittany were more than friends. And a Detroit community activist who was talking to Fox 2 News said she met a young lady named Brittany and they fell in love. So you kind of have three versions of what that relationship was like. And when I was weighing these kinds of sources, I mean, Lisa knew Jasmine her entire life, while this Detroit reporter and the Detroit police had never met her. Whatever they believed about the relationship came from outside it, pieced together after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, we need to read the text messages.
Exactly. And they have, which is why I include it. And I don't think it's my job to tell you which version is true, but I will say this. It's not hard to understand why a mother might describe her daughter's relationship in the terms she's most comfortable with publicly. And it's also not hard to understand why police working a missing persons case or a community activist who's spent years close to this case might land on a different read based on everything they were seeing around it.
What did her friends say?
That I couldn't find anywhere.
Interesting.
Yeah. Whatever the relationship was, it was significant enough that Jasmine flew 1,500 miles twice to spend time with a woman she had never met in person before they met online, I guess, before that first Twitter
2 years to talk to somebody before you ever meet them. I mean, I get catfishes still happen, but if that seems like a long enough time to get to know somebody. Granted, at 19, I don't know.
Well, and she's only 18 and they met when she was 16. So it makes sense to me why her mom wasn't like, yeah, go ahead and fly to Detroit on your own. No. So the first time was after she'd graduated from high school. And then the second time was for Thanksgiving.
Oh, so this isn't even the first trip.
No, this is her second trip. The first trip was great by all accounts. She flew into Detroit on November 25th, 2014. And she stayed with Brittany and her family for the holiday. And I tried to find what Brittany's family looked like just to get a feel for who was in the house. And the only thing I could find was comments from Brittany's mom and Brittany's sister. So I don't know if more people were there the night that everything happened or if it was just Brittany and her mom. By every account, the visit itself was great. They had Thanksgiving. They spent time with Brittany's mom, Sonia. Nothing in the record or her mom's accounts of those first several days suggests any tension at all. This reads in every source I found as a good visit, right up until very suddenly it wasn't. Jasmine was scheduled to fly home on December 5th. She never got there. On the night of December 4th, her last night in Detroit, something happened inside that house that neither Jasmine's family nor Brittany's has ever fully agreed on. So here's what we know. At some point that evening, an argument broke out between Jasmine and Brittany. The trigger, by multiple accounts, was something that Brittany saw on Jasmine's Facebook. Whether it was a post or a comment, nobody has ever specified what it said or why it set off this fight. Whatever it was, it escalated into a real fight. And from here is where our timeline splits. So Brittany's mom says she witnessed the whole thing unfold. Her account is that Brittany stormed out of the house first to cool off. A few minutes later, Sonia says she watched Jasmine storm out too. She says Jasmine had her belongings with her when she did, which Sonia has said made it look like Jasmine intended to actually leave and not just step outside. Brittany's own account, given separately, is that she encountered Jasmine outside and tried to get her to come back in. She was telling her it wasn't safe to be wandering around a neighborhood she didn't know, And from everything I've read, it seems like it was a pretty high crime area. It doesn't feel like it was the safest neighborhood. She also says the December of it all, it is wind chill, making it 0 or colder. Jasmine's not dressed for that. She says she took Jasmine's belongings from her and that Brittany headed back towards the house, thinking that Jasmine was following right behind her. And she didn't. According to Brittany, by the time she went back outside to see why Jasmine hadn't come in, Jasmine was already gone.
But okay, belongings, like you've traveled. So that means a suitcase full of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hair product, makeup. I mean, like, we're girls.
Yes.
So you're telling me that she flung all that into a bag and, like, come on.
No, I think she just means purse, wallet, phone, ID, not. And so the comment of she was going to leave.
She would be coming back because all her stuff is there and she's got to get on a plane the next day.
And when you're going on a 10, 11-day trip, you're taking a lot of stuff with you.
Yeah, that's a suitcase.
Yeah, and probably a carry-on if you're me. I don't pack light. Brittany described her walking out to the Detroit News. She said, quote, "I thought she went for a walk. I went for a walk to grab a cigarette and came back, but Jasmine didn't."
Brittany went outside to get a cigarette?
Brittany did. Okay. So Brittany went outside. Then Jasmine went outside.
Allegedly took back her stuff and then went back out and smoked a cigarette, but then never saw her again.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like she almost walked down to like a corner convenience store and came back. But she also says when she went back outside for that walk, she didn't see Jasmine. So it sounds like she did that little walk, came back, and still no Jasmine. But it had to be close because we only have a 15-minute window. So Brittany's family says they searched the area themselves for about 15 minutes before they couldn't find her, and they called Detroit police to report her missing.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
It is. Now, the detail that stuck out to me was the 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's fast. Like, unusually fast for a family to go from, we don't see her.
I mean, I bet it's been more because you have the fight, you have the alleged initial go in, grab your stuff, come back, and then walk for a cigarette, and then come back, and now they're not there. Okay, so it's probably more time has passed, but the fact that you then went out and looked for her, and that was probably the 15 minutes and then called, I'm like, so we're, I would be curious to know how long it actually was, but I mean, again, still fast.
Fast.
And I would say good.
Totally. I mean, if you spend any amount of time in true crime, the far more common pattern is the opposite direction. Families who wait hours, sometimes a full day or two, sometimes a week.
And especially, like, this is a guest in your home.
Right.
You're like, come on, I want to have to call the police.
Right. Like we always talk about, you don't want to have to make that call. And, if someone is going for a walk, 15 minutes isn't unreasonable. But you can also see the other hand that they understood the temperature. They knew she didn't take a coat. She's alone in a neighborhood she doesn't know. So that 15 minutes could just be, she didn't come right back in. We're not feeling great about this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just was interesting to me. I don't know if I've ever read 15 minutes, even for like a missing child.
No, I bet it's more. We looked around for 15 minutes and then called after it's already been a couple hours.
Mm.
That's how I would take that.
And that's very possible. There are some holes in the reporting that I can't find the answers to.
I want to know how does Jasmine's mom feel like she has a more accurate version if Jasmine didn't have her phone and texting her mom like, oh my God, we just got in a huge fight. I hate this girl. La, 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 that type. How am I going to spend one more night here? I'm curious because like, how did Jasmine's mom get?
So she didn't even know police had been called.
Right.
She didn't know that Jasmine was missing.
Right.
Until she didn't get on her flight.
Right. So we're talking a whole nother day.
And some sources said she didn't know for days.
Oh.
And like didn't have the contact information, I guess.
Like to call Brittany's family?
to see what was going on.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly on that detail.
I mean, okay, yes, on one, because Jasmine's now an adult, right?
She is 18. She's in her first semester of college.
I still feel like you would give your mom, like, hey, tell me what address.
Totally.
Like, I mean, I have my 19-year-old provide me with an address of where they're going to be staying.
I have my parents give me their contact when they're going places.
Yeah.
Like, all right, give me your friends' names and their phone numbers.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing about this was that, I mean, that is a long trip, but also Thanksgiving break isn't that long. And Thanksgiving was on the 28th, and she was not scheduled to fly home until Friday, December 5th. Classes had been in that whole week.
Yeah, that's weird that she would skip a whole week. That's right around finals time, too. So
finals started the next Monday. I found their calendar from 2014. And so to miss that whole last week of class prep and, you know, final
turning in assignments.
Exactly. Especially for an honor roll student in their first semester.
I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe a lot of this is done online now, but I don't know why I still feel like it's old school where you have to turn a paper in.
Oh, totally, in 2014.
Yeah, like by hand.
Yeah, right? I mean, I guess most of my master's degree was online, but that was intentional because we were supposed to be working while we did that.
Right.
So, but none of my undergrad was.
No, all in person.
Yeah. And maybe she could still do it from distance, but it's not the same as the distance education stuff is now.
No, because
COVID changed all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I couldn't really.
I mean, yeah, I guess online did exist.
Yeah.
But still not at the level it does after COVID. Yeah, I don't know.
So.
Yeah, because I remember colleges like sending kids home and then again having to establish an online process like regular school, like elementary school and high schools did.
Yes, absolutely. And this was, 6 years before that. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that extra amount of time.
Plus, she sounds very social. So I would imagine she's going to school in person.
Yes.
Just for the social aspect of it as well.
Yeah, she had moved to, not that far away, but she had moved to not just commute to college, but to live there and get the full experience. And if you're doing that, you're not doing online classes.
No, for sure not.
So back to December 4th, when Detroit police arrived at their home that night, the very first thing that struck the responding officers wasn't something they found outside, it was what they found inside. The officer who was leading the investigation has described walking through the house and finding Jasmine's cell phone, her ID, her jacket, her purse, all of her personal belongings sitting right there inside the house. In his own words, describing that moment, he basically said what Shannon said earlier. It's definitely not normal for a 19-year-old girl to walk away without those things.
I mean, I can see storming out without everything except the phone because you're going to want to vent to somebody.
Totally.
So you're going to start texting like mad to your mom or another friend or I don't know. That just seems
even
odd.
If you're wanting to communicate with Brittany but not still have this big fight.
Yeah.
You would text her maybe to, I don't know, explain the situation or apologize or whatever the case might be.
Very strange.
Leaving without a phone meant she had no way to call anyone, including 911. And also, you have no map. And you don't know this area.
Right, you don't know where you're at.
Mm-mm. And leaving without her purse and ID, I mean, she doesn't have cash to go get a soda down the street or pay for a cab or bus fare or anything. And the jacket, that detail, it comes up again and again in nearly every single piece of coverage on this case, simply because of how severe the weather actually was that night. Officer Pactelis, who is the lead on this case, has been specific about this. With the wind chill that night, temperatures were below zero, already snow on the ground. And Jasmine, someone who'd grown up in Texas, who'd only been there once before and not in the winter, had never had to build any instinct for a Midwestern winter.
I mean, I can see a 19-year-old regardless running out of the house with just a hoodie.
Yeah.
Now, I don't imagine they would go far.
That's the whole crux
Right.
of
Like
it, right?
just go sit on the car hood of their car or just go sit on a bench or something. I mean, is this a house or an apartment?
It's a house.
Then yeah, like go sit on the curb. Just, you can storm out and be dramatic and not venture away.
Yeah.
That again seems weird to me for 19 in an area you don't know with it being this cold. And again, I can see you being angry enough to, if there really is a convenience store down the street, maybe you did walk down there in just a hoodie. Kids do that stuff all the time.
Right. But it doesn't read like she was planning to walk 5 miles.
No, I mean, you would go back and get your phone at minimum.
Yeah. Or not let
Like,
Brittany
I can't
take it
imagine,
back
like, they were
inside.
even arguing and the phone wasn't even in her hand. Like, it's so weird. Like, the phone was in her hand. Come on.
Well, and Brittany's mom said she did walk out with it, but Brittany says she brought it back inside.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense either.
No, you can't have my phone.
No, exactly.
So either Jasmine wasn't thinking about the cold at all because, like Shannon mentioned, you're in the middle of an argument and you're just reacting. You're not planning. Or she didn't plan to be outside for very long at all. And the second possibility raises a question that I don't think gets asked enough in the existing coverage of this case. What was actually supposed to happen out there?
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Here's what doesn't add up in the sequence itself. By Sonia's account, Brittany went outside first. Then a few minutes later, Jasmine followed her with her belongings in hand. If Brittany had already stepped out to cool off alone, why did Jasmine follow her? Was she going after her to keep the fight going or to apologize or to talk it out? To leave the house entirely?
I mean, at that age, you're probably chasing after them to talk it out.
I would think so. Nobody's account actually answers that.
Oh, yeah, because it's allegedly over a post she saw that on Jasmine's Facebook. So, yeah, you following, maybe it is to keep talk it out, but really it's to keep the conversation going.
Yeah. And then, there's the question of Brittany's own coat. If it was below zero with wind chill, snow on the ground, and Brittany, who is from Detroit, who has presumably lived through dozens of winters there, went outside to blow off steam. Would she have gone out without a coat too? Nobody's ever said. It's a small detail, but it matters because if Brittany bundled up to go outside and Jasmine didn't, that tells you something about how differently the two of them were treating the same 15-ish minutes. And if neither of them dressed for the cold, that raises the same question about Brittany's account that it raises about Jasmine's. Neither of them planned to be out there long enough for it to matter.
Right.
Another question that the physical evidence leaves unanswered was how far did Brittany actually go? When she went outside, was she standing on the porch? Was she at the end of the driveway? Was she down a block? Every version of this story treats Brittany went outside and Jasmine went outside as the same kind of action. But if Brittany just stepped onto the porch and Jasmine was walking further to try to take a minute for herself, that's a completely different set of circumstances than if both of them were standing in the same spot the whole time. And as far as I've found, nobody in the reporting has ever pinned that detail down. And what all of this means is that the missing coat might not be telling us what it's usually assumed to tell us. If this was supposed to be a 5-minute cool down, both women stepping out, both expecting to go right back inside. I mean, the coat isn't evidence that Jasmine made an irrational choice to leave. It's evidence that whatever happened to her happened before she ever got the chance to go back in and get one. The absence of, a winter coat doesn't raise questions about her judgment at all. It raises questions about how much time she actually had. Now, from there, the investigation did seem to move pretty quick, at least initially. Detroit police brought in the Michigan State police crime lab to process their whole household, which tells you they were treating this as more than a routine missing persons report from the start.
I was just going to ask, was there any indication of foul play inside the home?
Not that they found.
Okay.
They even had a search warrant executed on the home.
Okay.
Investigators conducted ground searches of the surrounding blocks. They canvassed the area right around where Jasmine was last seen, in the Van Dyke and Mack area on Detroit's east side.
And no one else saw her that
No.
they've disclosed?
No, they said they found nothing. They found no sign of her. So I do take that to mean no sightings or
Yeah.
ring camera footage or anything like that. And they didn't find any evidence of what happened after she stepped outside. In the days and weeks right after December 4th, there was a real institutional muscle behind this case. Detroit police and Michigan State Police did that search. Like I said, they brought in the crime lab. They did the ground searches. I mean, this case wasn't one that got waved off as a runaway on day one, at least not from the police response.
Which is
itself.
good because I think that's probably because she wasn't from the area. So, and
Agreed.
didn't get on a plane.
Yes. Had a flight the next morning to get back for
Right.
finals. She's not just blowing that off. Unfortunately, all of that muscle behind the case didn't lead to answers. Weeks turned into months, and the case really went quiet. 9 months later, with no leads and no answers, Jasmine's mother and stepfather reached the point every family in this position eventually reaches. The realization that waiting on someone else's timeline wasn't going to bring Jasmine home. So they made the decision to bring in outside help. They hired private investigator Scott Lewis to work alongside Detroit police. And importantly, not instead of them, but with them. And Lewis didn't just come in and review paperwork. He got out into the neighborhood himself, and he brought his own resources. He led community ground searches. He conducted a fresh round of interviews separate from whatever detectives had already done. And at one point, even brought in cadaver dogs to search the area around Brittany's home. And nothing turned up there either. No remains, no clothing, no possessions, no trace of Jasmine. And Lewis has talked publicly about what that lack of any physical evidence actually means for a case like this. His read, based on everything he's seen, this happened in a dangerous, unfamiliar neighborhood, and it's entirely within the realm of possibility that Jasmine was taken by someone. That this wasn't a case of a young woman wandering off and getting lost. They would have found her. But that something was done to her by someone.
I mean, it does feel very like crime of opportunity. So she was just snatched. Because the fact that there's literally nothing.
Right? Nothing at all is just wild to me. And what's striking is, looking at this investigation as a whole, how much effort went into the physical search, bringing in the crime lab, getting that warrant so quickly, the cadaver dogs, the ground searches, and not once, but repeatedly over years, and how nothing turned up. The house, still had everything Jasmine would have needed if she'd left. And I really just don't believe that's the case. And the neighborhood around it had nothing that explained where she went. The sequence of events leading up to that moment, who went outside, when, why Jasmine followed at all, has never actually been nailed down by anyone reporting on this case. By the 1-year mark, the language from Jasmine's family had shifted from hope to something more like endurance. Her stepfather put it this way, quote, "It's been a year and I haven't heard her voice. I don't know if she's alive or if she's dead." Lisa went back to Detroit that November with Patrick. They joined volunteers in a mile radius search around her last known location, walking the same streets block by block, hoping that maybe someone who'd stayed quiet for a year might finally come forward. And community volunteers stayed engaged in a way that law enforcement either didn't or couldn't. One of the volunteers who kept showing up to search was asked directly by a Fox 2 reporter whether she believed Brittany had something to do with what happened. Her answer, quote, "Of course. How could she just walk out in the cold?" And she says, "No shoes, no phone, no nothing."
Yeah, I'm like, no shoes.
That comment's the only one I've seen that said no shoes. It's not in any of the other reporting. And again, she's just a volunteer being asked.
Yeah.
But she was helping with the search frequently. Another community activist, the one that we mentioned earlier that had talked about their relationship, she was asked something similar again and again over the years. She said, "Someone knows."
Well, yeah.
Yeah. By the 3-year mark in 2018, NBC's Dateline picked the case up for a feature. And even then, the headline told you what you needed to know. Still no leads. Lewis, still working the case at that point, so their private investigator, said, quote, "It's not beyond the realm of possibility that she was kidnapped." Lisa's words to Dateline are some of the most devastating. She said, quote, "It still hurts as if it happened yesterday because I don't have any closure." The amount of national attention, though, that this case received was small. I mean, genuinely small compared to what similar cases have gotten. The Black and Missing Foundation, a nonprofit founded specifically to address that gap in coverage, and we have mentioned them in other cases. They picked up Jasmine's case as early as 2015, and they featured her in Essence magazine's Bring Her Home for the Holidays series. Natalie Wilson, the foundation's co-founder, has said the quiet part out loud. No one knows what happened to her, and the case should not die. The media coverage should not die until Jasmine's family has answers. Multiple sources covering this case have made the comparison directly and pointedly. They mention Lauren Spire, a 20-year-old college student who had moved to Indiana to go to college from New York. She disappeared in 2011 after a night out with friends. Her case became a national story. Extensive coverage, sustained public attention, her name recognizable well outside of Indiana. Jasmine Moody disappeared under circumstances that on paper raise at least as many red flags. You know, an unfamiliar city, belongings left behind, search warrant, the crime lab, and her case barely left Detroit. It isn't a coincidence, and it isn't really a mystery either. It's not that Jasmine's story wasn't compelling. It's not that the facts weren't strange enough to warrant attention. It's that the coverage machine that turns a missing persons case into a sustained national story simply didn't turn on for her the way it has for other young women in comparable situations. And when we talk about this, it's because that pressure that comes from keeping cases alive in the public eye, the pressure gets tip lines ringing.
You would think the fact that there's a private investigator working the case would have a little bit more, or would make the police have a little bit more like
Press conferences,
yeah,
or
like make them work a little bit harder. Because you always hear, oh, the more the family complains, or when the press gets involved, that's when we have to do something because now the press is involved.
Exactly. So ramping up that pressure
Mm-hmm.
is not just saying one case gets covered when another doesn't. That pressure is what keeps things moving. Now, by 2023, Jasmine had been missing for close to 9 years. No arrests, no charges. The case that had already struggled for national attention was, if anything, fading further from view, except in Detroit itself, where there was a small group of community activists that never let it go quiet. That February, those activists showed up at Brittany's home. Brittany herself no longer lived there by that point, but her mom and her sister did. Her sister answered the door. What she said to reporters captures the exhaustion of being on the other side of an unresolved case for almost a decade. She said, quote, "We all cared about her. She walked out of this damn house and wasn't seen again. And now this is what we're dealing with." And this, according to Brittany's mom, has escalated well past uncomfortable questions at the door. She describes someone approaching Brittany directly, putting a gun to her stomach and telling her, in Sonia's words, that they should take you and your baby's life just like you did Jasmine's, which feels very extreme.
Yeah.
And Brittany's sister, in response to this ongoing suspicion aimed at her family, said, quote, "I get tired of this. They're treating us like we're effing criminals. We didn't do nothing to that girl." And, two things can be true at once here. Neither one cancels the other out. The first is Brittany's family has a documented, on the record fact in their favor that's easy to lose sight of 9 years into public suspicion. They called Detroit police themselves the night Jasmine disappeared. Nobody forced that call.
The only thing I don't like is they didn't contact her family.
Me too, because you had her phone.
Yeah.
Call her mom from her phone. I'm sure it says mom.
Right, because 2014, did we really have passcode on our iPhones back then?
I know. Why didn't you call her mom?
Yeah, you called the police, but call her mom and let her know. Something like, hey, has Jasmine somehow gotten a hold of you? Like, her phone is here, but we can't find her. La, 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 la. We've already called the police. Have you heard anything? That type of thing.
Absolutely. I don't understand why that was missed.
Yeah. Even like Facebook Messenger.
Oh, yeah.
There's still, if you don't know the phone number.
And you truly can't get into that phone.
Right. Then you have ways, especially then, because Facebook Messenger, I don't even think it weeded out people you didn't know. You could just get anybody, any message back then.
Totally. And now it weeds them out so well I miss things that I would have liked to see. But calling police right away when they can nail down that time, because they can see when her phone was last used, texts, calls, things like that. It's not that they didn't call for 2 days. They called right away. It's not the behavior of someone trying to hide something. It's the behavior of people who were scared and didn't know what else to do. And living for 9 years under the specter of being widely believed responsible for a disappearance that you say you had no part in. And again, there have been searches and search warrants and a crime lab, and they're saying they don't see any sign that something happened in that home. The second part of it is this: none of that suspicion resolves the questions that have never gone away. I mean, the timeline doesn't fully add up. The belongings left behind doesn't add up unless something happened really fast. As of the most recent reporting available, that's still where this case sits. No arrest, no charges, no remains ever recovered. Jasmine remains listed as an open missing persons case with the Detroit police, and she's in NamUs and Doe Network databases. The reward for information leading to her whereabouts is $2,500 through Crime Stoppers of Michigan, and that's still active. The tip line is still open.
We have a storm?
I guess we have a storm.
Look at that.
Oh,
Is that thunder, or is that just
I think that's thunder.
bins getting knocked over?
Oh, I see a recycling bin going down the street.
Okay, yeah,
So-
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. If you're hearing anything on a recording, we are getting a crazy monsoon out of the blue while we're sitting here. So I apologize if I don't get that all out of our audio.
Sounds like booms like fireworks.
Yes. That's
Now
what
I'm
I
like,
was
wait,
thinking.
is it hail?
Yeah. Loud.
Ah, okay.
So I think it's worth being honest about something as we close this one out. This is a story that almost didn't get told at all. Not by us, by anyone. For years, the only people consistently saying Jasmine's name out loud were her own family, a handful of Detroit volunteers who kept showing up to search a neighborhood that wasn't theirs, and a nonprofit that exists specifically because cases like hers tend to fall through the cracks. So if there's one thing to take from this episode, let it be this: her case is still open, the reward is still active, Detroit police criminal investigations can still be reached, and so can Crime Stoppers. Jasmine Moody was 19 years old. She was going to be a nurse, honor roll student in her very first semester of college, and she never got to make it back for her second. We say her name because someone has to keep saying it until she comes home, one way or another, to the people who have never once stopped looking for her. If anything this episode stood out to you, a name, a detail, a timeline that didn't sit right, don't sit on it. You can contact the Detroit Police Department's criminal investigations at 313-596-5752 or report anonymously through Crime Stoppers of Michigan at 1-800-SPEAK-UP. You don't need to be certain. You don't need proof. Somebody out there has known something for over a decade. And if that's you, this is your sign to say it.
That brings us to the end of today's episode of Vanished Voices. Thank you for sitting with these stories alongside us. It means more than you know. For a deeper look at our sources and research, head to the blog at vanishedvoicespodcast.com. Let's keep the conversation going. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at @vanishedvoicespod. This episode stayed with you. Consider leaving a review or passing it along to someone who'd appreciate it. Every share helps keep these stories from fading into silence. And as always, refuse to let these voices vanish.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.